With the rise of special dietary needs, I've often wondered, are certain cultures keeping up? Is their culinary food scene adapting to the needs of the modern world? Maybe you have a special diet, or you're more like me in that you're starting to make more friends that have dietary restrictions, some of which can be fatal. You want to socialize, and the best way in Portugal is by grabbing a meal or a drink together, but you obviously don't want to kill your new friend. I mean, after all, you just met him. Today, we're going to dive into how one of Europe's best foodie destinations is meeting the demand for those with dietary restrictions and figure out if it'll still be tasty for you. First, we need to find out what Portuguese food is and why it might be really challenging to adapt to what the food scene is here.
Portuguese food is family.
It's very diverse.
Is fish, seafood.
Most Portuguese dishes tend to be kind of large meals that can be shared at the table.
We have a lot of seafood, but then our meat dishes are quite strong as well. Also, like the pastry and desserts, we have a long history on them as well.
The freshness, the simplicity of the preparation, of the cooking.
Francesinha, yeah, definitely.
That's Portuguese food.
Francesinha is definitely one of the iconic dishes of Porto.
Well, it's probably the most traditional dish in Porto.
Well, it's very traditional from an area in Portugal, right? In Porto, in North.
It's a heart attack in a plate. So it's extremely tasty. It's a very unusual dish. It's visually inspired in le croque monsieur, like the French kind of sandwich with cheese on top, but it's definitely way heavier and you eat it as a main dish, right? Yeah, I love it.
That is totally Portuguese food around the whole country. It's pastel de nata.
Pastel de nata, yeah, definitely. It's definitely common across the country and especially from Lisbon, but also a lot from Porto.
One of the Portuguese best exports.
Has everything to do with our food, with our pastry, eggs. That's all about us.
Simple, but at the same time complex, right? They are cream tarts surrounded by like very thin layers of pastry. It's extremely good. They are very, very sweet, but they are not, because very sweet, they are not too big. So I think it's the perfect dessert, especially if you're having just a coffee.
That is Portuguese as well. Carne de porco alentejana. That is totally from the south of the country. And yes, I would say it's Portuguese.
Yeah, definitely. I lived in Alentejo, so definitely can connect with it. It's more common in the south.
A dish more from the south of Portugal, clams mixed with meat, which is weird. But it's actually very good and very tasty. And it has it has best of both worlds, right? From seafood and meat. And I think it's like stewed. I'm not sure.
Bread is quite common. I don't normally have it, but most Portuguese would have bread with their meal.
That's very Portuguese as well. Other cultures have it, obviously, not only Portugal, but I would say it's very much traditional in Portugal.
Many restaurants would bring it to the table to mix it with your food. So people would dip it in sauces or eat it with butter. But yeah, it's a very Portuguese thing indeed.
You cannot have a meal without bread on the table. Oh my God, bacalhau, bacalhau. Bacalhau is us, right?
Yeah, I think we have like 100 recipes for codfish, all kinds.
I always say if you don't like codfish, there's some recipe you're gonna like because they are so varied and so different on how they are cooked.
Not so much the fresh fish, which is really nice as well, but not so traditional in Portugal.
Gluten-free, vegetarian, pescatarian, vegan, and so on. They were definitely not common in Portugal when I was younger.
I've definitely heard, and I have a few friends that are one of those. They're not very common and they were not very common growing up. I think they became a lot more common in the last few years.
I obviously heard about it. They were not common whatsoever. I actually remember when I returned from Canada of preparing meals for friends and asking if anybody was vegetarian. And everybody was like, what? There's no vegetarians here. So nowadays it's not like that, obviously. A lot of people have evolved in terms of food, of habits, of health, of diets.
I would say they're not as common in Portugal as they are in other countries, but they're becoming more and more common.
Because of the diverse and the history of food, those changes and the introduction of those variations and the availability of it It's a bit more recent than in some other countries. And I guess in the past, people still had the same issues, but they had no option, so they would have to force themselves.
Definitely. I have a few friends that are vegetarian, some that are vegan, some that are pescatarian, and some that are kind of aiming to eat less meat, although they're not 100% vegetarian or vegan.
I do have a lot of friends. They are vegetarian, gluten-free, like a lot of them, lactose-free, a lot of lactose intolerance nowadays. Yes, but friends, family, no. My whole family eats everything, just like me.
A fraction of friends, I wouldn't say, it's not majority by far. And then we have even a much smaller minority of friends that they eat certain restrictions based on allergies. And those are a bit more harder to cater for because you have to be extremely careful.
I do notice most traditional restaurants do not offer. The new restaurants, the more new wave of Portuguese restaurants, they do, all of them. But the most traditional ones, it's really hard to find one.
Being a person that eats anything, to be honest, when I'm by myself, I don't notice restaurants have dietary options.
Nowadays, it's a lot more common. There's a huge difference to say the last 10 years. 10 years ago, it was very hard to find restaurants with those options. Nowadays, there are quite a number of restaurants that are vegan or are vegetarian, so don't offer any meat, and there are a number of those options in the restaurants. If you go to the more traditional, typical ones, are harder.
As you can see, for the Portuguese cuisine to adapt, it's going to be really challenging. It's a heavy meat society that loves carbs, especially bread. Dairy plays a huge role, and eggs are particularly baked into the country's culture for practical, historical, and religious reasons. I've recruited several friends that I've made since being in Porto to help me discover more of how the city's food scene is transforming. These are people with different dietary restrictions, and I've experienced firsthand with them the challenges of choosing restaurants that we can both enjoy.
So my diet is pescatarian, no meat, lots of veggies, and lots of seafood.
I am a vegan, also called plant-based, and I would say it's also a no-cruelty diet.
I have celiac disease, so I follow a pretty strict gluten-free diet, and I also try to avoid some other foods to help prevent migraines.
So I was actually vegetarian until I moved to Porto. Obviously the seafood options here are amazing, so made a bit of a lifestyle change from vegetarian to pescatarian. And the reason we became vegetarian was just for health reasons. Did a lot of research. We had some friends who were vegan who kind of persuaded us to try it. We just felt that we felt a lot better, a lot healthier. We're also really into fitness. So that was a fear of ours that maybe if we moved more towards a veggie diet, we wouldn't consume enough protein. But we realized that we could actually do that with a vegetarian diet, especially now being pescatarian. But we have chickpeas and beans and lentils and now fish, shrimp, and things of that nature. So we're definitely able to fulfill our protein intake.
I was a vegetarian most of my life, and then I found out that I have an intolerance to eggs through a long story. And so I stopped eating eggs, and then ultimately ended up stopping dairy as well. And when I stopped dairy, I realized how much better I felt. So it started out as a lifestyle choice and sort of a choice to avoid animal cruelty, but then it actually became a health choice as well.
My gluten-free diet is pretty strict, and when I get sick from accidentally eating gluten, I pretty much have to hibernate for a week. For me, it's pretty much a full body sickness, but it's different for everybody.
Not at all, actually. I feel most places now offer some sort of vegetarian, at least the seafood option. It's a little more difficult actually for me when I go home to the United States. Being from Louisiana, everything is so heavily meat focused, but here in Porto, it's never been an issue for us.
Yeah, I would say that people sometimes have an idea of vegans that we're some crazy activists and we're going to, launch a red paint at them or something like that. But for the most part, it's really just for me. And I try really hard to choose places and people who are tolerant of experiencing something new. So if we're going to go out to dinner, I'll pick an omnivore restaurant if I'm going with omnivores, but I'll make sure that ahead of time that they have something that I can eat. So I try really hard to not let my choices impact socially the people that I have experiences with.
Going on a gluten-free diet definitely impacted my social life. It felt pretty limiting at first. It's really hard to be spontaneous, but it's a learning curve. And so as you learn more about the diet and just how to navigate it, finding restaurants that work for you, it does get a lot easier. But at the same time, you never stop learning because circumstances are always changing, whether it's different ingredients in your favorite food, they've changed the recipe, or an international move where you have to kind of start over again.
Yeah, my social life has changed in a lot of ways being here. There wasn't much of a immigrant, English-speaking vegan community that I knew of. And so when I moved here, I started a Facebook group to meet other people and start having dinner parties, and it's grown to almost 1,000 people.
Moving to Portugal, and then specifically to Porto, was a little difficult at first, navigating new country, new culture, new language, additional complication of navigating a gluten-free diet. There's a special vocabulary that you have to learn, and communicating with people who don't always talk about that can be difficult.
And then additionally, I've seen a huge impact with restaurants, seeing more and more things pop up on menus where clearly marked vegan options or actual full vegan restaurants that are not only opening but really thriving.
A lot of the newer restaurants kind of get the concept of allowing people a choice of a meat dish, a veggie dish, or a seafood dish. So that's been super helpful for us. We do have our go-to cafes where we know for sure they will have at least a vegetarian or pescatarian option. But actually some of our more favorite cafes actually will be more vegetarian focused. And we noticed that recently in the last couple of years, a lot of these types of places are popping up. We feel like we have a ton of options actually.
Every year a list comes out of the top vegan cities in the world, and Porto is number 14 in the world. So that's from 2024. So leaps and bounds from the first time that I came to visit, which was in 2019.
There are a few dedicated gluten-free restaurants in and around Porto, and also some restaurants that aren't dedicated but do a really good job accommodating. I think that on the whole, Porto is pretty average for places that I've lived in terms of how accommodating restaurants can be.
I've asked Megan to show me around some of her favorite restaurants so we can see inside a few places, try some food, and also discover how expensive it could be to eat at some of these specialty places, because I get the impression that there's a premium on these kinds of foods and restaurants. Okay, here at My Green Pastry, everything is vegan. The owner is vegan herself, and then they have gluten-free options. So when we ordered a coffee, for example, with milk, of course she asked us if we would like soy or almond milk. I went with almond, Josh went with soy. And then also both of us, obviously Megan got a gluten-free pastry, and I did too. I would like to try a gluten-free pastry, so let's see.
That's really good.
Okay, so some keywords that people should know, like gluten-free would be saint gluten. Any other, definitely you should know this kind of word.
Well, in English, you'll want to know the words for flour, for pasta. I think it makes the rest taste a little sweeter by comparison. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, maybe that would be the thing to do, is to go with something that's tart and to get that, because you could get that lemon or lime tartness, which is similar to any other type of
and
meringue or dessert.
then just feels refreshing.
Yeah. I always get sucked in by chocolate. Well, why I got this. I wish it was sweeter. Not bad. This is different.
Megan's taking me to Comcore, which is the crown jewel of Porto for those who are looking for a gluten-free restaurant. So we walk there, but as we get there, we realize, oh gosh, it's closed. So now we have to make a shift. And that's when we end up at Sen Culpa. We sat inside at first, but it was really hot, so we decided to go and enjoy the back in the courtyard.
I haven't been here before, but it's exciting to see that it's 100% gluten-free, lactose-free, refined sugar-free, vegan, and vegetarian. It's sometimes hard to find all those things in one place.
Josh and I have been here, but it was years ago, and the menu looks really similar, but I think the name is different, so let's try it out. So judging by what it says here, like you assume that everything on the menu is gluten-free?
That's what it looks like to me, but I'll definitely triple check.
Okay.
It's always good to double check.
All right, we just ordered, and the server did say that everything on the menu is 100% gluten-free and lactose-free. So Megan ordered, and then also Josh asked her, like, how do you say the word celiac in Portuguese? And she thought about it for a second, and then she just said sans gluten, which obviously just means without gluten. But there is a technical word for celiac in Portuguese, so just be aware of that.
So I thought it was interesting that, you come to these places that have special dietary menus.
Right.
And you start talking about terminology and
They don't know, they might not know. Well, I think just because someone works here doesn't necessarily mean that they're super familiar with the terms. I mean, they could obviously say, okay, yeah, everything here is 100% not gluten, but they might not know more from that when it gets a little more technical or the technical terms.
What's been your experience in the States with stuff like this?
I'd say pretty similar, actually. And I think your observations about that are really spot on. Your mileage is going to vary. Sometimes you have to get into a deeper conversation with staff to really make sure they understand where you're coming from and to make sure you understand what they're saying. And sometimes they have to go and get someone from the back, someone from the kitchen, and that's great, actually. Like, that can be a win, because then there might be someone who's more intimately involved with creating the food, creating the menus, who understands, and you can talk to them about it.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I
it seems
think-
like the owners have more buy-in. So like at My Green Pastry,
The
she's
owner
the owner, so
is vegan, so
yeah.
So you do have that, or an instance where someone in the family has some sort of sensitivity and you're super aware of it, and then you also realize there's not much out there, and there are other people who want to dine out, but then also have to be very careful, so then you create a restaurant.
Some of my best dining experiences in the United States, in Portugal, other places have been when someone in the family needs that, and then that person's just who creates that experience is so careful and really cares a lot, and that's always a great experience.
Would you come here again? What do you think?
Yeah, I would. Food's really good. Fresh squeezed juice is nice, and the courtyard's really cute. What
It's a
about you?
hot day and doesn't feel bad out here.
No, I am sticking to my chair, but that's all right. That would happen anywhere. No, I think it's really good. Yeah, we don't normally focus on going to places that are specifically vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, but it would be very easy to come here and grab brunch with or without someone who needs those types of dietary changes. So
We planned better this time, and so we're back at Comcori to enjoy their bifanas, francesinhas, and traditional food, but gluten-free.
Look at that cross section, very meaty. All right, so I'm noticing that it's like hot dog, not sausage.
A little bit, but I will say, first of all, it's pretty tasty, and also it can be really challenging anywhere to get gluten-free sausage. So they probably opted for safety when putting this together, which I really appreciate.
So I decided to order the crepe. It's tasty, but you can definitely tell a difference. It's not as maybe light and thin. It's a little thicker and denser, the actual crepe, which I guess makes sense with how they have to make it. But overall, the taste is good. It's just a little different than when you would get maybe a crepe of ham and tomato in France, for example. What do you think?
That's legit.
Yeah?
It's good. No.
We're at Time Out Market, which is always a good place. I think if you've got a mixed group, because you've got vegetarian options and non-vegetarian options. So if you want to come here, it's good with the mixed group. This is a veggie place. So we're with a friend who is a vegetarian, so she's going to get that. We're going to take a look and see if there's anything else. But I might try something just to let you know how it is.
After taking a look at the menu with our friends, I definitely decided to get a dish here. We did a little bit of sharing, so they got a mushroom dish, and then they also got a dish that had polenta. Both were very good. I went ahead and went with the curry. It's a chickpea curry. And then Josh chose another place, but he ended up going pescatarian for the day, so fish.
So what are my thoughts and how is Porto doing? Porto has adapted really well, I think. Actually, Portugal in general has. I would say that the Portuguese places have done a really good job of adapting with extra vegetarian options, and some of the dietary restrictions, you can still go to Portuguese places. But the best thing I've seen around Porto in general is that there are plenty of vegetarian, vegan, and other types of restaurants available, so you can definitely eat something yummy and go with friends who have dietary restrictions. A big thanks to Charlotte on Patreon for suggesting this video idea. And if you would like to join our growing community on Patreon, then click here. And if you're interested in food resources to assist you, email me at info@expatseverywhere.com. Now, let's get moving.